The movie opens with Nora, a talented singer, delivering a mesmerizing performance at a local bar in a picturesque island. Her melodic voice resonates deeply with Manuel, the bar's owner, so much so that he invites her for a glass of wine in appreciation. She gracefully accepts and orders a glass of red wine. Sensing an opportunity, Manuel presents Nora with an attractive job proposition: singing at his exclusive private club with a paycheck triple her current earnings. However, the peaceful atmosphere is shattered by an unexpected accident. Akeem, the diligent waiter, serves their wine but accidentally spills it on Nora's dress. He frantically tries to fix the situation, showering her with apologies. Yet, Manuel, emphasizing the primacy of customer satisfaction, takes a horrifically violent step and stabs Akeem in the neck. Nora is left in shock, drenched in Akeem's blood. Manuel, though regretful, insists she freshen up and return later to fulfill her new singing obligation. The scene then shifts to the urban jungle of LA. Mark, Akeem's older brother, and his partner Phil work as undercover cops. While staking out for drug dealers, Phil recounts his recent romantic incident to Mark, lightening the tense atmosphere. Upon the dealer's arrival, Mark cautiously inspects the drugs, while Phil discreetly presents the payment in their car trunk. The transaction takes a dramatic turn as Mark reveals his true identity, taking out his gun at one of the dealers. A battle erupts, but Mark and Phil swiftly overpower their adversaries. Amidst this chaos, Mark's phone rings, bearing the heart-wrenching news of Akeem's untimely death. Overwhelmed by grief, Mark returns to the island the following day to attend Akeem's funeral. Among the mourners are Akila, Mark's ex-wife, and intriguingly, Manuel. Both, along with the village community, extend their sympathies to Mark and his distraught mother. After the ceremony, in the privacy of their home, Mark's mother hands him a box of Akeem's personal belongings. Seeking answers, Mark inquires about the circumstances of his brother's death. His mother, visibly shaken, admits her ignorance about the details, but hints that the island has undergone unsettling changes since Mark left 7 years prior. Mark assures her of his determination to uncover the truth. Seeking leads, Mark revisits his old workplace, the island's police department. He reunites with Chief Nate, a longtime ally. Nate confesses the police's cluelessness about Akeem's murder, but shares a theory. He suspects that Akeem might have tangled with gangs from neighboring islands, known for their drug operations. Reconnecting with his past, Mark seeks out Akila, a skilled karate instructor and an old friend. As they catch up, she provides insight into the island's recent changes. Manuel, she reveals, arrived just 4 years prior but has rapidly established a stranglehold over the island's affairs, with many inhabitants now heavily reliant on him. More troublingly, she mentions that Akeem was employed at Manuel's bar, stirring Mark's suspicions further. With newfound determination, Mark confronts Manuel directly. He challenges him about Akeem's whereabouts on the fateful day of his death. While Manuel acknowledges that Akeem was indeed working at the bar, he claims the young man left before the night's tragic end. As an alibi, Manuel provides Mark with a specific location, suggesting that Akeem might have encountered trouble with gangs there, leading to his untimely death. Mark, however, remains undeterred. He strongly advises Manuel to leave the island, emphasizing its sentimental value as Mark's childhood home. Manuel's reaction is swift and sinister. As Mark departs, Manuel discreetly communicates with gang members from a neighboring island, instructing them to deal with the resolute Mark. Meanwhile, anticipating potential threats, Mark revisits an old friend. This reunion results in Mark unearthing a stash of weapons he had hidden prior to leaving the island. As night descends, Mark, fully aware of the potential dangers, approaches the location provided by Manuel. He attempts to initiate a peaceful conversation with the gathered gang members, inquiring about Akeem. However, instead of answers, he's met with aggression. With his back against the wall, Mark displays his combat prowess, neutralizing his attackers with minimal injuries to himself. One of the gang members, desperate, calls for reinforcements. Mark corners the gang's leader, interrogating him after a fierce tussle. The leader, bloodied and defeated, confesses he knows nothing of Akeem. His real mission? To eliminate Mark. Soon after, reinforcements roar in on motorbikes, guns blazing. Mark, relying on his instincts, finds cover and narrowly evades the hail of bullets. The chase spills onto the streets, with Mark tactically maneuvering to shake off his pursuers. The gang members regroup and receive fresh instructions from Manuel: target Mark's vulnerable point, his mother, and use her as bait. Shortly after their departure, the gang descends upon Mark's childhood home, hoping to catch its occupants off guard. To their dismay, the house appears uninhabited. After a thorough search, they stumble upon what seems to be Mark's mother asleep. They rashly fire, only to discover they've been deceived. It's merely a pillow placed to mislead them. While searching the house, they come across a photograph featuring Mark and Akila, which they snatch as a reminder of their visit. Meanwhile, in the safety of Akila's home, we find Mark's mother in the protective company of Akila. It's here that a heart-rending revelation is made. Mark and Akila suffered the devastating loss of their child 7 years prior. This shared grief binds them even more closely. Back at Mark's mother's house, the blaring sirens signal the arrival of the police. Chief Nate, piecing together the events, deduces that Mark's mother's residence isn't the only crime scene of the night. After a while, Nate stumbles upon Mark. Desperate, Mark pleads with Nate for assistance, emphasizing the overwhelming power of Manuel and his gang. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Nate then provides a lead. He suggests Mark seeks out Nora, who was present at the bar the day Akeem met his end, offering her last known location as a starting point. The next morning, Manuel confronts the gang members responsible for the previous night's failed mission. Manuel's right hand eliminates the gang members using suffocating plastic bags. Realizing Mark's tenacity exceeds his initial estimation, Manuel instructs his crew to summon a special group of associates. Upon arriving at Nora's residence, Mark identifies himself, flashing his lap badge as proof. Gaining her trust, he assures her of safe passage back to the US in exchange for information. Nora, seemingly relieved, reveals the unsettling truth: Manuel was the one behind Akeem's death. As this revelation sinks in, Manuel's elite reinforcements, his so-called special friends, make their way onto the island. Sensing the gravity of the situation, Mark urgently requests Nate to ensure Nora's safety. Nate takes swift action, escorting Nora to a boat that will ferry her to the nearest airport, thus paving her path to safety. Concurrently, Mark breaks the heart-wrenching news of Akeem's death to his mother. Aware of the looming danger, Mark gives Akila a firearm for protection. As Manuel's menacing team closes in on Akila's home, the trio makes a quick exit, slipping out the back. As they make their escape, Mark sends an SOS to Nate, updating him on their dire situation. Racing against time, Nate reaches Akila's residence, immediately drawing gunfire from the pursuers. While Mark and Akila decide to confront their assailants head-on, a firefight ensues. With precision and determination, Mark manages to eliminate one adversary, while the rest scatter, fleeing the scene. Nate, showcasing his tactical prowess, manages to deter the remaining threats. Once the dust settles, Nate and Mark discuss to meet up after ensuring the safety of Mark's mother. But the turmoil doesn't end there. When news reaches Manuel that Nora has escaped his grasp, his fury knows no bounds. In a ruthless display, he punishes the unfortunate individual assigned to monitor Nora, administering a lethal dose of drugs. In the midst of chaos, Nate seeks intelligence on the attackers. Phil, always resourceful, provides the needed information. Mark, prioritizing his mother's safety, relocates her to a trusted old friend's place. He urges Akila to stay put, away from the danger, but her resolve is unshaken. She's committed to standing alongside Mark. With a sense of foreboding, Nate visits the local church, entrusting the priest with the intel acquired from Phil, emphasizing the confidential nature of the data. He instructs the priest to only read the contents should anything unexpected happen to him. As night blankets the island, Mark and Akila find comfort in each other's company. When Akila pleads with Mark to bring Manuel to justice using Nora's testimony, Mark is determined about handling things his way. Their conversation takes a turn for the emotional as Akila, her voice thick with emotion, admits she fears losing Mark. Much like how they lost their child years ago, this very loss had driven a wedge between them and compelled Mark to leave the island. Seeking to lighten her fears, Mark assures her that he's taking on Manuel not just for personal vengeance, but to reclaim the island's peace. He vows never to leave her side again. Their heart-to-heart is cut short by Nate's abrupt appearance, his face covered with bruises and anguish. Almost instantly, a hailstorm of bullets strikes their hideout. As Mark fights back, taking down one of the attackers, the enemies manage to abduct Akila. Amid the aftermath, Mark witnesses the tragic death of his close friend Nate. As dawn breaks, Mark, consumed by grief and determination, interrupts a prayer session. He appeals to the villagers to aid in the search for Akila. Touched by his plea, the priest discreetly hands Mark the information Nate had entrusted him with earlier. In a dimly lit room, a bound Akila faces her captor, Manuel. He enjoys the thought of prolonging her torment. After leaving her under the watchful gaze of a guard, he exits the room. Back in town, Mark heads to the police station, uncovering an ongoing investigation that Nate had initiated against Manuel. As he delves deeper, two observant youngsters approach him with vital information. They claim to have spotted Manuel's right-hand man lurking around an old, abandoned hotel. As Mark processes this lead, Phil, his old partner, joins him at the station, ready to provide assistance. During the dark, still hours of the night, Manuel's chilling voice comes through a phone call to Mark, demanding a swap, Nora for Aquila. The next morning, Phil, accompanied by a well-prepared team, marches to the abandoned hotel. Mark, determined to confront Manuel, makes his way to the pre-decided location. As Phil and his team face off against Manuel's guards at the hotel, they eventually break through, finding and freeing a grateful Aquila. Simultaneously, Mark's face-off with Manuel is tense, with Manuel expecting Nora to appear. Yet, just when the situation seems its most dire, Phil contacts Mark, confirming Aquila's safety. With newfound confidence, Mark informs Manuel that Nora won't ever be stepping foot on the island again. Manuel, enraged, commands his men to execute Aquila, only to find out that they've all been taken down. With a swift, expert move, Mark incapacitates Manuel's right-hand man. As he menacingly approaches Manuel, in a sudden twist, the assistant draws a concealed weapon, attempting to fire at Mark. But before the bullet can find its mark, villagers led by Mark's old friend storm in, overpowering and dispatching the assistant. Refusing to end things without giving Manuel a fighting chance, Mark challenges him to a one-on-one duel. The stakes? Manuel's freedom, should he win. However, those familiar with Mark's prowess could predict the outcome. After an intense showdown, Mark emerges victorious, ending Manuel's reign of terror. In the final scenes, Mark, having found his true place, presents Aquila with a ring. This heartfelt gesture signifies their reunion and the promise of a shared future. The movie ends here, showcasing a moment of peace, love, and hope after all the hardship they have been through.